Two American citizens are among the suspects captured for the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse. The U.S. operatives were able to watch and hear investigative journalist Julian Assange live via streaming when he was inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London. And according to the South African Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Zuma will be eligible to be released in just under 4 months, that is a quarter of his 15-month sentence. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the South. In Haiti, police announced on Thursday that 2 Americans are among the suspects captured for the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. The Haitian American citizen James Solange is among those implicated, according to the information provided by the Minister of Elections, Matthias Pierre, to the Washington Post. Pierre also detailed that another of those involved is a U.S. citizen without yet revealing his name. The Prime Minister, Claude Joseph, said that 17 suspects have been apprehended. Haiti's police chief, Leon Charles, pointed out that they already have the physical perpetrators in hand and are looking for the intellectual perpetrators. The National Police announced that 7 other suspects implicated in the murder had been killed. It should be noted that the citizens participated in the arrest of at least 2 people, presumably linked to the assassination of Jovenel Moïse. The civilians who were tied up were taken to the police stations to be handed over to authorities.
Assaillant sa yo pou mener enquête la pou nou capable
assailant to conduct the investigation. We already have the physical perpetrators in hand, and we are looking for the intellectual perpetrators. The population continued to help the police by reporting where they were hidden. The police carry out interventions and recover weapons and other things. These people that we have found, we have an obligation to protect them. We cannot take justice into our hands.
And now we have an update from the border between the Dominican Republic and Haiti from our correspondent, Madeleine Garcia.
We have moved to the border between Dominican Republic and Haiti throughout the Jimani border crossing. As we can see, it is entirely closed, and the military and the security forces are still developed by the Dominican government, which decreed an alert after the assassination of the president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse. We are at this point waiting for the reopening of the border crossing, as the Haitian Prime Minister in charge said in a recent press conference that the country was already under the control of the authorities and the situation, even though tense because a president was assassinated, is normal and the trade and the economy have reopened, as well as the international airport in Port-au-Prince. Now we wait for the opening of the border shared with the Dominican Republic. We are also waiting for the Dominican Republic to lift the presidential decree where borders remain closed for the national security of this country after the assassination of the president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse. Of course, we remain here to bring you how this story unfolds.
We thank our correspondent Madeleine Garcia for that report. The special representative of the UN Secretary General in Haiti, Hélène Lalim, spoke about the importance of the investigation to bring perpetrators of Moïse's horrible crime into justice and the political tensions in the country.
Came out of a meeting with the Security Council where the permanent representative of Haiti made a request for assistance with the with this investigation from international authorities, And so it is important that these requests be taken seriously. We certainly are prepared as BNU with the expertise that we have on board to assist this investigation and to reach out and to call for further expertise as necessary. There certainly are tensions. There are certainly people on all sides of this issue having different interpretations of Article 149. That's why it's important that dialogue happen and that the Haitian authorities and Haitian stakeholders have a dialogue so that a way forward can be charted, one that gives the people of Haiti the opportunity to decide who their next government.
As calls for foreign intervention to protect the democratic order in Haiti, the Organization of American States has pledged its determination to work for what it termed the Haitian cause. As news of the assassination of the Haitian president emerged, Colombian President Iván Duque, notorious for his administration's human rights abuses, was quick to call on the OAS to send a mission to Haiti. During an emergency meeting, OAS Secretary General Luis Almagro, known for his meddling in the region's internal affairs, made it clear he was ready to ensure the usual interests prevail in the Caribbean nation, as well as the U.S. representative in the bloc.
In the wake of this vile assassination, Haitians must join together to ensure peace and security and to prepare for legislative and presidential elections this year. This is the only way forward. The people of Haiti need democratically elected leaders who can take action to reestablish security, rebuild confidence in the government, and reinvigorate the economy.
Our Organization of American States is grieving today. At the same time, it is more determined than ever to continue working for the Haitian cause. The institutional stability of Haiti must be at the center of our concerns.
Warnings are being issued on the opportunistic use of events in Haiti by foreign interests. Christopher Bernardo, member of the Haiti Committee of the Human Rights Project, Black Alliance for Peace, has called for an anti-intervention approach on the matter.
The Black Alliance for Peace, our number one position is that of an anti-imperialist position. We would condemn any foreign intervention into Haiti, any foreign intervention by outside powers to come and influence the process further. The Haitian people are responsible for the country of Haiti, and it is up to them to come in and take responsibility for the country and for the situation. The role of the U.S. in Haiti has been the opposite. They haven't been a stabilizing force. They have been more of an occupying force in Haiti, an interventionist, imperialist force that has tried to control the internal affairs of Haiti through organizations like the UN and the OAS.
More reaction on Moises' assassination are coming in from the Caribbean region.
Disaster of major proportions for a country like Haiti to have, its leader assassinated cold-bloodedly like this. That cannot go unpunished.
In Haiti, they are concerned about tomorrow. They are scared about tomorrow.
Of the situation in Haiti, and since Haiti is a CARICOM member, we all have to be concerned because the whole state of play, what is taking place in Haiti at this time, must be a concern for all peace-loving and democratic-minded persons throughout the entire world.
I spoke to the president on Monday. I know he was in a very good spirit. He was really adamant to carry out his policies, and particularly the elections. He believes that it's very important for Haiti to hold elections, and he was very concerned as well for the security situation.
Nicaragua announced a wide-ranging poverty reduction and human development plan for 2022 through 2026. The plan is under discussion in Parliament. The initiative was introduced to the National Assembly on Wednesday. It places the poor at the center of the government policies, according to the Minister of Finance and the Public Credit, Ivana Costa. The plan aims to strengthen macroeconomic stability, provide basic living conditions, develop skills, and secure public services such as health and education. Another massacre was confirmed in Colombia. Authorities found the bodies of 4 victims in the central department of Meta. The remains, 3 women and 1 female, may match the description of 4 people reported missing on May 27th. Meta is where the first social leader was killed this year. This is the 49th massacre registered in Colombia so far this year. We're taking our first break now. Join us again after this, but don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at teleSUR for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South, more news now. U.S. operatives were able to watch and hear journalist Julian Assange live via streaming when he was inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London. The service was a courtesy of the Spanish security firm paid by Ecuador's government to protect the premises. The company, Undercover Global, was happy to break all codes of conduct in order to help its U.S. friends, and its owner, a former military man named David Morales, has acknowledged before the Spanish court. The investigation has produced witnesses, emails, and documents proving that not only Assange was under surveillance, but also the diplomatic staff and the ambassador himself. The surveillance finished when Assange was betrayed by Ecuador's president Lenin Moreno and delivered the British police after 7 years. Assange is currently fighting an extradition request from Washington. The UK High Court has notified the parties involved in Julian Assange's extradition case that the U.S. government's appeal will be listed for a hearing. The High Court did not allow the U.S. to appeal any of the factual findings concerning Assange's condition, which led a judge in January to block his extradition on fears his life would be at risk. No date has been set for the hearing. Assange remains behind bars in London's high-security Belmarsh prison.
If the Biden administration is serious about respecting the rule of law, the First Amendment, and of defending global press freedom, the only thing it can do is drop this case. This case is the most vicious attack on global press freedom in history. Criminalizing journalism. Just look at the indictment. They're criminalizing receiving and communicating true information to the public that no one denies was in the public interest, that evidenced war crimes, that evidenced torture, that evidenced illegal rendition.
Uruguay's right-wing government seems determined to break up Mercosur. Montevideo announced it will no longer be bound by the Common Trade Treaty tariffs. Uruguay's announcement preceded the Mercosur summit this Thursday, chaired by Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez, a staunch defender of the treaty launched by Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay to strengthen and complement their economies and set better trade negotiation terms. Montevideo said it would now negotiate tariffs separately with trade partners. In response to Uruguay at the Mercosur summit, Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez voiced a strong defense of the treaty's strategic aims and principles.
Unity in diversity means, in the case of Mercosur, more dialogue and solidarity. These values transcend the constitution of a common economic space, of a cohesive platform of international insertion in a globalized world. They are basically the pillars that make our people feel like part of that project, citizens with a common identity. It is with more and not less regional integration with which we will be in better conditions of producing and trading, negotiating and competing.
In Italy, Operation Condor is on trial. On Thursday, lawyers of the families of the victims of kidnapping and torture present their testimonies. They are presented against military officers that acted during the dictatorship in South America in the 70s and the 80s. Likewise, the testimonies of the accused will also be heard. The military officers involved were charged with homicide and condemned by Rome's Court of Appeal in 2019. Let us remember that Operation Condor was a backed U.S. campaign of political repression and state terror against the left in Latin America. China said on Thursday the U.S. should stop slandering the country and overlook its own human rights crimes. The statement comes in rejection of a recent U.S. report saying that 17 countries, including China, failed to meet the minimum standard in preventing human trafficking.
In this regard of fact, the U.S. side fabricates such reports full of false information year after year by repeating the old rhetoric to groundlessly attack and smear China. It is hell-bent on advancing its lying diplomacy. China expresses strong dissatisfaction with and firm opposition to this. In this report of 600-plus pages, the U.S. glosses over its own problems with less than half a page. This fully reveals the double standard of the U.S. side of being strict with others while treating itself with leniency. The U.S. has no authority to act as a judge on human rights. It should earnestly reflect on its human rights crimes, including forced labor and human trafficking, stop vilifying others, and stop interfering in other countries' domestic affairs with human rights as a cover.
With Tokyo under a new coronavirus state of emergency, the Olympic Games will take now place without spectators. The country's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga announced a state of emergency this Thursday in a bid to fight an increase in COVID-19 cases. The state of emergency will begin on Monday, 11 days before the Games opening, and end on August 22nd, 2 days before the start of the Paralympics. This is the latest setback for the Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics that had already been delayed for a year.
It's a real shame that the state of emergency will be taking place at the same time as the Olympics. But to prevent the coronavirus from spreading, we must apply all possible measures.
We're taking our last break now. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. According to the South African Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Roland Lomola, Zuma will be eligible to be released in just under 4 months. That is a quarter of his 15-month sentence.
In this case, there is no stipulation for the non-parole period. This effectively means that the former president will be eligible for parole once a quarter of his sentence has been served. We want to assure all South Africans that former President Zuma will be afforded dignity throughout this term of incarceration.
According to the Africa Director of World Health Organization, the situation in the continent is yet to get worse after a 12% increase on COVID-19 infections over the second wave peak. 16 countries are experiencing a resurgence in cases amid the spread of the highly transmissible Delta strain and low vaccine coverage.
Africa has just marked its worst pandemic week ever, surpassing the second wave peak. During the week, which ended on the 4th of July, there were more than 251,000 cases, a 20% increase over the previous week, and a 12% jump over the January peak.
On Thursday, the World Health Organization said that the arrival of the Delta variant of COVID-19 on the African continent projects a sudden acceleration of infections as part of the third wave facing the region. The WHO authorities detailed that with the detection of 251,000 new infections, the continent experienced its worst week since the arrival of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in the region. These figures show an increase of more than 20% in the incidence of new cases compared to the previous week. In this sense, the agency warned that the presence of the Delta variant in 10 countries, in addition to the low vaccination rate registered in the continent and foresees a substantial increase in the number of infections. And while many countries are struggling with COVID-19, the Caribbean island of Anguilla has managed to control the pandemic and reopen tourism, its main source of income.
Well, obviously, the global pandemic has impacted all of us, irrespective of where we are. It has impacted us, and to my mind, that is the low. But the high is the way we have been able to manage the pandemic, handle the pandemic, and open our economy to tourist arrivals, which is has been tremendous for us. And to do that in a controlled manner where people can participate in the economy while keeping the community safe.
The former director of Brazil's health ministry, Roberto Dias, was briefly arrested and freed on bail for perjury before a Senate commission in Brazil, investigating corruption in the acquisition of vaccines.
I do not accept that the ICC is becoming a farce. We have more than 527,000 dead from this pandemic, and the guys are doing deals with vaccines. He's going to jail for lying, for perjury, and if I am abusing my authority, his lawyer or any senator can prosecute me. But he will be detained now for Brazil, because we are here for Brazil, for those who died, for the victims. We are not here to play.
3 rockets were fired at the U.S. Embassy in Iraq this early Thursday. Bases hosting U.S. forces had been attacked with rockets and drones the day before. According to the Iraqi army, the embassy itself was not hit, but 3 nearby places in Baghdad's heavily fortified Green Zone were. U.S. forces, who have more than 2,000 troops deployed in Iraq, have been targeted almost 50 times this year. But the last few days have seen an increase in the frequency of strikes. In the previous incident, 14 rockets were fired at an air base hosting U.S. troops in the western province of Anbar, causing minor injuries to 2 personnel. Continuing their takeover of Afghanistan, Taliban fighters pushed their way into a provincial capital in the northwest region, freeing prisoners and threatening to overrun the city itself. The assault on Kala Ena is the latest in the Taliban's recent offensive, which began as the U.S. and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization troops began withdrawing from the country. In the span of just over 2 months, the Taliban have managed to seize more than 150 of Afghanistan's 400 districts. These recent Taliban victories have put the Afghan government in a difficult position, with more than 1,000 Afghan troops fleeing into neighboring Tajikistan. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also be sure to follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.